Welcome back to another episode of Muse, where we talk about anything creative. You have your host, Ezra.
And Nasim. And today we have a guest.
Cynthia.
Nice to have you. And tell us about yourself.
I'm an artist in New York. I do realism portraits about the Black experience to make conversations about things Black people go through, stuff like that.
That's great.
What's your social media?
Sin the Cinna, and my art page is cinna.arts.
And spell that for the people in the back.
CYNA.arts, regular arts. And then Instagram, Sin the Cinna, CYN, the CYNA.
All right, fire.
Yeah, so what's our question?
So today we're going to be asking, how does culture play a role in art?
I feel like culture plays a role in, I feel like culture creates art to a certain extent, where a lot of people didn't do art until it was implemented in culture. If you get what I mean.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you think that culture plays a pivotal role in affecting art?
Yes. So, I know, alright, when realism portraits were first done, they're because they couldn't take photographs. And that's because of the culture of, let's say, in Europe, right? They're like, oh, I want a portrait of my family. And that's because it's ceremonial to have our family portrait and how to have the painting of, kings and queens. So I think that's when they found people who can have the skills to do that until, photography came along. Also, if you go to tribal ceremonies and things like that, yes, it's art, it's artistic, it's because like we said before, we established art's about language. So, but for them, it's because they wanted to carry a message or carry a tradition that they have in their culture.
I see.
That we call art now.
That's very interesting. I think that goes to a topic that we're going to have in the future about how is art just a reflection of society. And then what you're saying is that if culture is art or art is deprived or it comes from culture, then that means art is a direct reflection of culture in a sense, which is very dope. That's dope. So what made you want to get into sharing the Black experience?
I think it's really important because most artists that we study, the masters of portraits and realism, I feel like they're always a white man.
Mm-hmm.
It's very limited Black people that get notoriety for it. So I think it's important and not to emphasize the trauma in the Black experience, which is what we usually see. It could be seen in film, dance, all genres. So I feel like it's important to not only show the trauma, but make conversation that's important for this time period.
That's interesting. I actually want to speak on that. When you was speaking, it just made me think about it and how a lot of artists, especially Black artists, they're trying to go away from displaying the trauma of Black art, especially American Black art, because I think that became or has become just super connected to what the Black experience is, or what the only thing we show within the Black experience is the trauma versus all the good, beautiful, and positive things and things like that, which is very interesting. For example, when I do artwork, I can do whatever, but if I do Black artwork or if I do artwork that shows Black trauma, people resonate with it way more. And it's just it's easier to get that connection in some ways. I know that me and Ezra, we did a gallery, and legit, this was a quick idea. I just took a picture of my dad's hands and I put some handcuffs on it, and this white guy just connected to it so deeply with something that I didn't really even connect to like that, but it kind of felt as though making that type of work sometimes is easier to capture an audience, because I guess it's the things that they hear or the things that they see within the Black community, which is interesting.
Yeah, a good example of that is kind of like Jordan Peele. With Get Out, it was about racism. Mm-hmm. And that hit off, and then now he's moving more towards just films that it does include Black people, but it's not going based off of trauma and stuff. It's more a creative expression. He's just making films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of his masterpiece was the thing that talked about, or his classic was the one that talked about racism in the Black community. But when you try to spread out and be okay, bro, I'm just going to have Black people living a regular life, just being people. People's dude, but what's it saying? Really like it. What's it saying?
I feel a lot of times, which is hard thing about being a Black artist is, as a Black artist, are you obligated to make Black art? And that's a problem that, I dealt with. Definitely things we discussed with. And I would like to ask y'all each, do you consider yourself a Black artist, or you make art about Black people?
I like that. I would say I'm an artist because not everything has to do about Black people, but I definitely, like, for example, when I listen to things like Kendrick Lamar and stuff like that, I definitely can connect to it a lot deeper. Even if personally I never experienced that or living in poverty, but I have seen things like that and I've had family that's been through that. So when I hear the stuff he's rapping about and things like that, like, I really connect to it. But I also can connect in to something that's totally unrelated to that, and I think that's majority of the things that I do connect with, and that's the type of stuff I really want to make more.
I mean, I agree, because I feel like a lot of it comes down to what comes. So ultimately, like, when I create work, it's like whatever I'm thinking about currently, and sometimes that may be about Black people, whether it's the Black celebration or the Black struggle, and some of it might be something completely different that has nothing to do with it, that may still be narrative based, may still relate to me, but I'm not trying to share with only my folks. I'm trying to share with everybody. Yeah. So it's like, I feel like, it's a range.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like, I don't think it's an obligation, but I personally just enjoy making that connection to the culture. I like to make my art based on, like, conversations that I feel like are important that aren't really spoken about. Like, for example, I want to do a piece about, like, the controversy with wearing a bonnet. Like, I feel like that was a big deal, like, Black women wearing bonnets as, like, a casual thing. And then some people found it, like, not professional or, like, stuff like that. So I think, like, just conversations about things going on today, I feel like is important. Because,
like, that's, like, a lot of things nowadays, I feel like it does run off of Europeanism. Yeah. Like, with how America's run. Yeah. Like, certain things that are, like, social cues that are considered polite and respectful, I feel like has a lot of Europeanism
for sure
in it. And even when we talked about art, like, in school, the main things you learn about, like, maybe Black History Month, we have, like, 3 Black artists. We talked about this in a previous podcast, and it's just like, why is it only then where that has to come? Why can't it be all the time? Because it's the focus is not on people of color, because obviously Europeanism.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and that's why I also think making artwork about your culture is important, because it does open people's minds and also open the scene with variety of cultures, as well as when you're sharing your culture, you can see, like, for example, of people of color, like how another brown person's color, culture is similar to yours. And I think it can sometimes be like, okay, it's not too many differences between us, because we either struggling from the same things or have the same things that we celebrate, or similar things that we celebrate, that I think can bring a more inclusiveness and, like, bring us all together even deeper.
I mean, I find it funny though, like you said, worldwide, there's a lot more relations between people of color, and I feel like are actually kind of outnumbering the strict, like, the strict, like, classical art movement. It's like, okay, yeah, that was a big thing that we learned in school, is, like, classical art, but it's like there's so many other forms of art. Like, we never actually went over like the Native Americans made a lot of art. Africans made a lot of art. And not just, like, I don't have to go down all the different, like, you go Egypt all the way to, like, I don't know, Nigeria. Yeah. Or you go to Sudan or Ethiopia. Like, there's a lot of Madagascar, the Philippines. There's, like, so many different cultures that have art. And why are we only learning about classical art?
Yeah. Right. And what makes it classical? Because it's classical to a certain culture. I mean, of course, you can go all the way down to, all the way back to, colonization and things like that. And, like, of course, they're going to share that, because a lot of things that we've made as a culture, for example, like within Native American heritage and a lot of, like, African heritage, has been deleted from time and has genocide within it, where that is cultural genocide. And that makes it so deeper. And I think that's probably why a lot of artists of color, and looking at us, Black artists of color, like, we want to share more of our culture, because a lot of it has been deleted. And it's a growing culture. It's a very new culture. And in ways, it's like when you look at, like, American society, a lot of Black culture is either stolen or is fetishized. Yeah. Where it's like the white culture is the norm. It's what we expect and what we accept. But when it comes to Black culture and people of color culture, it's fetishized, and it's like, dude, this is the next hot thing, and it shouldn't be like that.
I also feel like, back to what you were saying about, like, the school system teaching us just about European art, I feel like the only time I've learned about black art was like the Harlem Renaissance, and like that shows a lot. I feel like today it's not many black artists that are highlighted.
And when was the Harlem Renaissance?
That was, what year was that? I don't even remember.
I'm not from New York.
It was during like the civil movements when black people were like expressing themselves in like different art forms.
Okay,
that
so
was, like, highlighted.
But you know what I think is interesting about that? Think about how long ago that is compared to how long ago other movements are.
Right.
It's like, why is that the
highlight?
The highlight where it's like there's so many things before. I mean, obviously I get why it's a highlight.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying why is it a highlight. I get why it's a highlight, but why is that the only thing that's highlighted?
Yeah, it's like from then to now, I feel like it's kind of like faded, like the highlight of black art.
That's kind of interesting because that wasn't that long ago if you think about it.
That's what I'm saying.
Like our grandparents, depending on how young your parents had kids, you know, you experienced, like my grandmother was in the civil rights movement type time, you know? So it's like, that stuff is like fairly new. I saw this one thing where they actually make a lot of those pictures black and white when they was shot in color. Showing basically to make us think, dude, that was far back, and it really wasn't.
That's what I'm saying. Like you're telling me that the furthest back you can go in history is a couple hundred years ago.
Not even a couple hundred, dude. That's like 80 years ago, bro. 90 at the most.
100.
Yeah, let's say 100. It's within that time.
I gotta double check. I gotta fact check. But regardless, even if it was 500 years ago, that's compared to like all the like. I mean, I'm gonna hop off this after this.
Yeah.
But like all the paintings that we showed and classic artists that we showed, they go back years. Even like the first portraits, it's like, and then this is the first thing we catch is that. So I think it is very interesting, and
yeah, just to put in perspective, like my great grandfather was in World War II. He passed away at 94. I was around like 5 when he passed away. So even if he would be 100 something right now, bro, it's not even nowhere close to 200 years ago. So basically what I'm saying is like, dude, that stuff was like recent, and it should be more culture that we can look past further than that, as well as it's still a lot of modern things happen now, but I think these things need to be catapulted to being way bigger than they are, you know, and like really, really express and really celebrate it. Not just 1 month, not every different racial group other than white people get in 1 month, but it's just, okay, you want to dive into this, it's in your face, you have a lot of access to it that the schools or other systems provide other than just you got to research it yourself on the internet. Now, I do believe we should be more self-made, but, you know, it should definitely just be given to you.
Well, I want to leave this topic. I want to go to a point that you mentioned with kind of like the whole culture vulture thing. Do you think it's necessarily bad? And I'm curious about where do you draw the line? Like, when is it too far? When is it just right?
See, with me,
or is it all wrong?
I think the culture vulture thing is just, it's selective. We select when we want to be upset about it. But like, for example, like I was talking to my friend about this. I said like a black American person, we get upset when black British people come to America and play roles.
Take our roles. Yeah.
But I feel as though I heard Dansum Idris, the person from Snowfall, he was talking about this. He said he would like to see more Americans come to the UK. I said, me as a black man, I should be able to play someone from the UK. I should be able to play someone from Africa, and that does happen like Viola Davis playing in The Woman King. I should be able to play an Afro-Latino. I should be able to play whatever, you know, and because all those people are a part of me in one way. Now, I haven't been brought up in all those different cultures, but I can learn the culture. I can learn to love the culture, and I can learn to find a way to express myself through that culture, within acting or within music or in whatever.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you're just embodying a role.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I say like a part of it is like, yes, there's an element where it's like people are taking things from other people's culture and they're building a success out of it without giving credit to.
Right.
And there's also another element where people take other people's culture and maybe they're not giving credit, but still adding and highlighting, like this hip hop, you know, a lot of people took from hip hop.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's highlighting this hip hop movement and people's like, they want to go back to hip hop.
It would be no reggaeton
sources. So that's why I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like, yes, there's a certain extent, and I think people get really touchy with it. Yeah. Like when white people come in and like do things like locks and this, that, and third, it's like, damn, it's like you said, people are selective with where they get tight quick. Right? Yeah. And I understand certain things, but it also is just like, yes, people have different cultures, but it's not like we can just own everything. It's like it's out in the world. It's like everyone has the right to their own way of living, and everything's sharing. So it's just like I feel like there's a certain extent where if you're not trying to be offensive, then I do believe that it shouldn't be. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
And that's interesting because like when it comes down to like culture, how we just talking about, I feel though it's more of an American thing to be more sensitive about culture.
Yeah.
Because or just more, I want to say just a modern society or a Europeanized society to be sensitive about culture. Because you go anywhere else, they love it when you embrace your culture and stuff like that. For example, like I have a Vietnamese grandma. If she's teaching me how to speak Vietnamese, like she's happier that I'm trying to learn it, you know? And like with anybody, my friends, they come over to watch a fight. She wants to teach them and stuff like that. So like, and she's from Vietnam. So when you kind of understand it, like it should be celebrated for people to want to learn your culture, want to learn your language, and want to learn your history. That should be celebrated, especially when they're doing it in the right ways. Like how Ezra said, when they're not coming there to take, but they're coming to learn and in some way add value. But don't have to be adding value back to the culture, but add value to their lives. And they know that's good for their life.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I feel like that's a big like problem in America. It's not seen in other places because America is just a mix of a bunch of cultures. So some people could take things like, oh, you're stealing this from my culture. But like, I just feel like it's important to remember to highlight where it came from. I think if that's done, then you can't really... And it has to be done in a tasteful way. Of course, not doing too much or like blatantly taking something from someone's culture and like adding like a slight little thing to it and then calling it your own. Like, I feel like that's distasteful. But like if you take it and you expand it and you maybe connect it to your culture in some way, but give the recognition to where you got it from, I think that if that's done, I feel like it's no harm.
For sure.
I mean, that's like kind of like, I remember is this video of this guy dressing up in like attire, like that's related to people's like culture. So I remember when he went in a, I don't know if it was Chinatown.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh yeah, or in another time where you went to a Spanish speaking community.
Yeah.
Where I think it's primarily a Mexican community.
He learned like, I know you're talking.
Yeah, so and they were like, oh, it looks nice. It looks nice. Da da da. It's like, oh, that's pretty. Like, oh, it's cool. Da da da. And everyone that wasn't that like, you know, the classic American white people just like, that's so offensive. You can't do that. Da da da. So I feel like it does. I feel like that it's kind of interesting. It just made me think of it when you said about your Vietnamese grandma.
Yeah.
But it's like some people love that people are interested in other people's cultures.
Yeah, but also you have to think about, like, I know we talked about it with some other people, with those Latino people and those Mexican people within that video. They probably might not feel as though someone stole anything from them because they're still deep in their culture, and even though they might have lost some roots throughout colonization, they feel as though that they still feel rooted in the culture that they love. But when we look at America, and he was going to a lot of like college universities and stuff like that, a lot of those people might still feel like they've been stolen from, as well as they might not feel as secure in their culture because they don't know as much as they would want to know. So I feel though like in America is more touchy because you can actively see the history of cultural genocide as well as stealing of culture and getting benefit from it. So it's a touchier place.
I mean, especially like people that come to America and say they're their firstborn in that family. Yeah. So like their whole family can speak the language or like speak the native tongue, or they're from wherever, and they're like the first generation. And I feel like people like that maybe might feel a little bit more like sensitive when it comes to it, because it's like, damn, I came here. Me and the rest of my family kind of feel separate because we didn't live the same. We didn't come from the same place. I might be a little shaky when it comes to the native tongue, the history, and I could see why people would feel kind of like offended toward, because in the end of the day they kind of got stripped from it without their say so. Yeah. Before they were even born. So I think that is an interesting different. I mean, I gotta ask some people.
For sure. And I think, like, as well as when it comes to what you was talking about, like native tongue and stuff, I feel that made me think that we also live like on like we just talked about, like a European standard. So a lot of like languages like English, like Spanish, like Portuguese, those are European tongues, languages, you know, and like the native people from this land, the black and brown people of this land, that's not even really our native tongues. So when it comes down to our culture now is like rooted within European type mindsets because that's a part of our culture now because it's been like basically pushed to be in our minds.
Mm.
Going back to how like artists like of color aren't really highlighted, how do you guys think that they can be? Like today, what do you think people can do to try to push that, even though it's not done in like the school systems and stuff? Like, what do you think we can do as people?
Well, I definitely feel like as people all together, just me individually as an artist.
You individually as an artist.
So
I mean, you could do other people too. Like, how could we support, or like, what are your ways to support?
Well, I do feel like there are people that are working towards that, and there are a lot of like, I would say, communities or programs that have that as a center focus. But also, like you said, like a lot of it starts in the school systems. So I feel like honestly, I'm not really a big fan of Black History Month, to be honest.
Yeah.
I actually feel like it should be it's like overall history, because you know, like part of our history is yes, is the building of America or whatever, but a big part of our history comes from before. There's a lot of lies thrown in there, like saying every Black person's from Africa.
Yeah, but every Black person from Africa came in slavery.
Yeah, came in slavery.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. That's a better way to say it. So it's just like, I feel like it should be a normal thing curriculum, not like a touchy subject like, well, we gotta be careful with this. This is something completely separate. So it should be integrated. And another thing is like when it comes to art, it's just like I said, the same thing. Like open up the curriculum. But like outside of school, it comes down to like sharing programs, letting because I know a lot of companies when it comes to getting certain art, they're like, oh, we shouldn't really do like race because this and that, but guess what? Every time they do that, it's always a person of color that they're saying that to when it comes to the subject.
Yeah.
But they'll throw a white boy on there quick, or they'll do like a little random diversity throw in. So I definitely think it should be more common. It should be more accepted, and it should be normalized.
For sure. For sure. If I was going to answer that question, I would say it just need to be more empowerment as well as more information provided. Also think, like, to answer that question, it's more for the parents. Because you having a family, it's a parent's job to introduce, to inspire, and to help grow and nurture a kid. So if that's going after they get out of work or whatever, being like, oh, I got this book, I need you to read it, or this and the third, let's have this conversation at dinner, or whatever it is, they need to be finding ways and opportunities to inspire, to help grow, and help empower. So, in my opinion, how Ezra was talking about, growing up, I was taught, like, it's Black people throughout all Latin America, Northern America, all parts of America. You think, or in Black-looking people throughout the world, you think Black people only got these places throughout slavery? That don't make any sense. So you go and you dive and you learn about your heritage and your ancestry and the stuff that has been stolen from you. You can help find, at least have more of a clearer thought about it and be able to piece things together yourself, where like, okay, Black people have native ancestors throughout America, and you can dive deeper into that. And like somebody I love that talks about that a lot is like Kyrie Irving. He goes and dives into his heritage and his history. And you can see, I like how Ezra's talking about how it's not normalized, because he was Kyrie Irving expressing his heritage throughout the NBA, like saging out the arena before he played and praying. He's also Muslim and stuff like that. And the NBA talked about it like, bro, this is his culture. Why can't he express himself through his culture, through his native ancestry, his native roots and stuff like that, and really be able to express himself in that way? So I think that's very vital.
Yeah, so I definitely, like, when the parents thing, it's like I said, like, as a parent is a whole, like, a lot of people don't realize, but as a parent is a whole nother job, because, like a lot of parents, they just take off what they learned already, and that they were forced to learn, and just lead off right there. And if it was just by that, then, of course, they wouldn't know much, they wouldn't share much, they don't have that much information, because they didn't do outside research based off how our curriculum's set up. So, like you said, like, as a parent, that has to be a whole nother job to sought after information.
Yes.
And I really love that.
Yeah.
What will you do?
I feel like it is a part of like the school system stuff. Like the background knowledge is important. I also feel like as a community we can do better. Like if you see like for instance, I think the last like pushed black artist I could remember is like Kehinde Wiley. Like everyone saw his art and like pushed it to the forefront, and he got his recognition, which he deserved.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if you see an upcoming black artist on social media, for instance, or somebody's making clothes, or you see somebody into photography, film, or a dancer, any type of form of art, if you see them on social media, they don't have the biggest following, I don't think it should be overlooked or not reposted. I think everybody needs to, you know, come together, like, share. If they're doing a show, you know, attend the show, or at least, like, put up the flyer for the show so other people can know, like, it's going on. And, like, maybe even making more, like people of color art fairs and stuff, or like things where we can collaborate and make connections and like promote ourselves. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean,
that's definitely important.
I do agree. Like I feel like there's obviously there's a lot of stuff to be done, but another part of it is like that you can't help is that there's a lot of just natural prejudice.
Yeah.
Where I mean, there's a lot of people that say, well, I'm not like that. Like I don't. But it's just it's part of it.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing.
I also think it need to be a deprogramming, because I think that us as people of color, we're programmed to only support a lot of Europeanism and stuff like that. So like when it comes down to like buying luxury brands and all these different things, what makes it luxury? I see you got a Teflon bag and stuff like that, and I think it need to be more of that. Like, okay, I got this, it's black owned, this is black owned, this has a black creator, and I love these artists, not just because they're black, it's because I can see them for how great they are. Because we don't love Louis Vuitton because for what it is. We love Louis Vuitton for the name.
Right.
We don't love Louis Vuitton for the art. We don't love Gucci for the art a lot, but, you know, that's what we really care about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we said a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, so thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Muse, where we talk about anything creative. Like, subscribe.
Hit the bell icon. Leave a comment.
Yeah, all that.
See you soon.
And, yeah, find your muse.